Hey guys, so today I am out planting potatoes. I wanted to take you with me, and I also wanted to talk to you guys about planting zones, because this is the time of year that everybody is thinking about what zone am I in and how does that affect what I need to plant. Here are all my potatoes ready to plant. This is not going to be a video on how to plant potatoes, but this needs to get done. It's a great chance to come out in the garden on a beautiful day. But what I've done is I cut these potatoes from last year that had already started sprouting into pieces that had at least one big growth on them already. And then these other potatoes that I got from Wood Prairie Farm, I just cut into pieces that I could see little eyes on. You can see those little baby sprouts coming in there. And I did this a few days ago so that they could scab over a bit before I planted them. It seems like nobody can really agree on whether or not that's necessary to let them scab over or not. But I figure it can't really hurt to let them scab over if I have the extra time. So might as well. So USDA hardiness zones is usually what people mean when they're talking about what zone are you. There's a lot of actual different systems that do basically the same thing in different countries. But since I'm in the US and a lot of my viewers are in the US, mainly I talk about USDA hardiness zones. And if you don't know what this means, it means that the country, and actually I think they've done this for the whole globe, is split up into zones 1 through 13 that are categorized based on the actual minimum temperature of the region. And that's basically it. These zones only denote the minimum extreme temperature of that region. And each zone is like a 10-degree spread. So if your minimum temperature is between 0 and 10 degrees Fahrenheit, that will put you in the same zone, whether you're at that 0 or at that 10. And it's the same for 10 to 20 and so forth. And this information can be kind of useful in some ways. For example, if you're trying to figure out if something is going to be perennial in your area, if it's going to grow and come back year after year and not die over the winter, knowing the minimum extreme temperature in your region can be useful. But for us home gardeners, especially when we're growing a lot of annuals, that's not super useful information. And even if you're growing perennials, it's also not super useful information, and I'm going to tell you why. So when you're growing perennials, you do need to know what the lowest temperature that they can tolerate is. But it's not ever really just that simple. When you're thinking about what it takes for a plant to survive somewhere, not just the minimum temperature, but also things like the amount of moisture that region gets and how long it is that cold, and even things like the amount of snow cover that you're expected to have at the time that those lowest temperatures are being hit, because snow acts as an insulator on the ground. Not to mention that the system doesn't talk about the extreme high temperatures in a region, which can be as deadly to certain plants as extreme lows. And as far as considering your annuals, this system doesn't take into account frost dates, which means it's not telling you how long of a growing season you have that is frost-free, which most annuals that you're thinking about growing in your garden do need those frost-free days. So the system does give you some information, but overall it's severely lacking in a lot of things. And I see people who are new to gardening, who through no fault of their own, come in believing that knowing what zone they are is the end all be all for figuring out what to plant in their area. And again, I don't blame them, because that's kind of like how it's presented. Like, oh, this is what zone I'm in. And I've even done this too, because people continue to ask me, what zone are you in? I'm in zone 7B. If that's information that you want to use, that's great. But it doesn't mean as much as we're kind of told that it should mean, I think. So we can then ask, is there a system that works better, that helps us figure out, as new gardeners specifically, what things are going to do well in our climate? And there's a few options out there, but there's nothing that's super mainstream, which I find to be pretty overall disappointing. There's some ideas, like, for example, classifying plants by hardiness rather than classifying areas by hardiness. And some people have mentioned doing things like an indicator plant for a zone, like a perennial plant, and saying, will this survive here or not? Which can give you like a good yes or no, but it doesn't give you like a really widespread information about the climate of that area. There is also a, I'll have to put it on the screen because I can't remember how to pronounce it, but basically it's a system that classifies regions by their climate rather than by their temperature. Like, temperature is taken into account, but like the overall climate is the focus of that particular system. And I think that's probably pretty good, but that's also not a complete picture. And you know, with gardening, as with all things, we're dealing with living things that need a variety of needs met to survive and thrive, and it's never going to be a simple yes or no, plant this, don't plant this at this specific time. It's so much more nuanced than that. And the thing that really annoys me about zones is that people do initially try to treat it as like, yes, just if it survives in your zone, you can plant it, which is very much not true and really misleading to new gardeners who end up disappointed when things don't work out because they followed planting instructions for their zone from somebody who may be in the exact same zone as them but is in a completely different climate. I thought I was digging up a rock, but I just got this out of the garden. Looks like a metal stake of some sort. Joys of living in an old mill town. So I definitely do not want to leave you feeling lost when it comes to stuff like this. Like, you come into this video feeling like, ah, yes, I'm going to learn about how to use my zone to figure out what to plant. And now I'm here telling you that you can't really do that at all. So what can you do instead? I think the two main things to consider about your climate when you're thinking about what to plant is how long is your frost-free season, if we're talking about the annuals, the vegetables that you would normally grow, which I'm assuming that's why you found my videos, because you're probably looking to be a vegetable gardener or are a new vegetable gardener. Most of these things you need to think about how many frost-free days you have. So you can quickly Google, what is my average last frost date in the spring and what is my first frost date in the fall. And then the number of days between that is the length of your season. And when you're looking at different vegetables, it will tell you this thing takes so many days to mature. And if your season is longer than that, you can probably plant that thing. The other thing to consider is water, how often it rains, and your soil type in relation to that. So heavier clay soils, like what I have, are more prone to flooding than like sandier soils, which have a harder time holding moisture. And so thinking about these factors for your area will help you not only decide what to plant, but also how to accommodate plants that are less comfortable in your climate, because you can grow a lot of stuff that is not necessarily native to your area. I mean, I feel like most of the vegetables that we typically grow are not super native to wherever we're trying to plant them, but we are accommodating them. We are making sure that they have the right amount of light. We're making sure to water them when there's not enough water, or we're making sure to amend the soil with tons of compost to give it higher nutrient density and make sure the texture is more accommodating to plants like that. And so I think all of these things are far more important than figuring out what zone you are when you're thinking about what should I plant. I really thought that I could talk and work, but I planted like almost none of these potatoes. So I'm gonna go do that. My comment section is always open for you guys. If you want me to clarify things more, if you have specific questions, always leave that down in the comments. And I will see you very soon on Wednesday for a garden tour. If you're new here, I do garden tours every single Wednesday where I talk about what's going on in the garden or what's not going on in the garden to give you like a really clear picture of what a normal garden looks like and not just like the highlight reel. So check back on Wednesday for that, and I will leave a playlist here of all the garden tours I've done so far this year if you want to catch up. But until then, thanks for watching and happy gardening.